We are back with the second episode of the Aizu campaign, and in the last episode, as you could remember, we essentially ran over the Josei, and we have just taken all of the Josei, and then we're finishing the rest of them, because I used the power of the Shinsengumi and incited revolts and destroyed their armies, and basically distracted them for my armies to come in and take everything, which is very, very interesting. In this episode, we're going to be doing the opposite, and we're going to be marching on the capital. And when we're going to be marching on the capital, we're just going to be taking the capital by force or by quote-unquote liberating it. So that's going to be interesting. But that said, last turn we just attacked Rito Katachi. If you haven't watched the last episode, I highly suggest that you do. And the first thing that we have is our initial dilemma. And our initial dilemma is that our Nagaoka allies have decided to attack Edo itself. Now, I could easily decline the alliance, which essentially will break the alliance with the defender and I won't be at war with the Nagaoka, or join the war with the side of the ally, which is interesting, because now, if I join the war with Edo, I essentially go to war with Nagaoka, and if I break my alliance, then I don't do anything, essentially just let them kill them. Honestly, if you ask me, I had a very hard time because I wanted the Nagaoka dead, but I think it was more beneficial for me to take out the Edo, which is very important. But that said, our last holdouts, the Josei's last holdouts, are getting completely destroyed. As you can see right now, I'm taking their last province. And I'm just going to auto-resolve because I'm pretty sure my armies can bring me victory on the battlefield without me fighting it. So the end of the Josei is over, and we essentially have taken all the Josei, while at the same time I'm declaring war on the Numata. And in this case, what I've done again is that their armies are at war or supporting the Edo, and well, they're at war with the Edo, and I'm just going to march into their capital while I prepare my armies for the invasion of the capital, or should I say, liberating the capital. On the other hand, the Nagaoka armies and the Numata armies are just going to be marching on the Edo, and Numata offered me peace, which I basically declined because I want their lands, and Edo is preparing their armies. Now, Edo has a very decent modern army, and they actually would stand a pretty good chance against the Nagaoka, which I was a little bit afraid of. But now, since it's winter and my troops are taking winter attrition, I decided to go in and take Numata. Well, their capital at least. And essentially I stormed because every one of their elite troops are in Edo trying to take Edo, which I basically helped Edo by essentially destroying their faction, and I've taken their lands. Of course, I don't do it because I'm kind, it's because more the fact that I want their lands to increase my power. But on the other hand, I'm doing back to my old tricks, which is incite revolts and incite revolts again, and with a revolt incited, I'm just going to watch and see what's going to happen, because now Edo is essentially screaming and crying, trying to end the revolts. They're very friendly, but I'm just trying to see how long can I attack them. Of course, a few turns later I keep inciting revolts, and I'm just waiting for my best time to attack them, which is going to be a long time. It's 5 turns to be exact. And honestly, as of right now, I'm also inciting revolts in the neighboring Nagaoka because I want some of their territory, although I don't want to go to war with them because I'm still allies with them. But that said, on the other hand, the Edo, I'm once again doing revolts, and an interesting thing is that I can incite revolts on their neighboring provinces, which is very interesting because what I found out was their neighboring provinces, although the Odawara is right there, the Odawara basically have no armies in their provinces, and I'm just going to make a massive rebellion, quite literally the size of their castle garrison, and have it essentially attack their castle. Well, I hope it attacks. But next turn they attack it, and we essentially have the province up for grabs, because now once the revolt is started, I can essentially move in with my army. And that's exactly what I'm gonna do, because I'm just gonna move my army on a ship. And I'm just gonna drive them to the place right next to Edo, and I'm just gonna land it right there. And what's going to happen is that I'm going to hopefully take the province without the Odawara coming back. And to give you an idea of what's going on, the Odawara doesn't have a lot of provinces. It has a lot of weak troops in the spear, and honestly, they're not a threat at all. But I just want to take their lands without even declaring war on them, and that is possible with the help of the Shinsengumi. And of course, I'm gonna attack the place, but I kind of bit off more than I can chew, and I now need reinforcements, or at least I need the enemy to sally out. But in the next turn, the very next turn, should I say, the Edo are massing troops for something to kick out their rebels, and I'm massing troops because the enemy is going to be attacking me. Of course, the enemy army is quite literally a joke, and I'm prepared to fight them. Honestly, the entire battle is quite a one-off battle in the sense that I was just able to stomp them very, very quickly because their army, although has a lot of troops, I was able to rout them because my guys were literally able to come in, crash them with my katanas, and they essentially all routed. And after that, it was kind of very obvious of what I will do to them because I'll be taking the province because, yeah, the rebels, which I funded and supported, have essentially taken the province, and now I've taken the province from them. And I'm essentially just going to auto-resolve the attack on their province, which I've essentially taken the province. Needless to say, it's kind of complicated. Or should I say, I made it kind of complicated. But I've taken the province, and I'm going to have to repair everything from the ground up. And while we're at it, I'm also inciting revolts on all my allies. Why? Because I want to increase my territory without going to actual war with them, which is amazing. Because, well, I don't want to be seen as threat number 1. Of course, I'm inciting a lot of revolts, and Nagaoka is kind of prepared for that, and of course, all across the board, I'm essentially waiting for my best turn to attack Edo down south. Now, the capital itself is highly defended, but I'm going to call my allies to war, but I don't want my allies to take the capital, and after the 5 turns, I'm just going to march on Edo, and because the Edo armies are nowhere to be seen as of right now, I am just able to take Edo. And Edo essentially is very heavily fortified, but because there's once again, no armies in the field, I'm able to take it. I win a decisive victory to take Edo, but I find there is a massive Edo army right outside, and that massive army is also quite modern. Another interesting thing that I did was also incite a revolt in this province, which means I get to have the luxury to take that province again. And what I'm going to do this time is going to have my guys board troops transports and just going to march on that province once they slightly are ready to be marched. I exempt the province from taxes and put these guys on ships. Now, this is one of the armies in which I have cannons on them, so that's going to be hopefully easier for me to take out the enemy. And the Edo army is just going to be roaming around, which is a problem because, well, a bunch of angry troops outside of your castle, which was formerly theirs, is not the best idea for me. But needless to say, I essentially taken the capital, or should I say, I liberated the capital with the help of some rebels. And now I'm just waiting to see what the Edo does. On the other hand, we do have a massive army that is just doing stuff. The Edo is going to be raiding up my towns left and right, and I actually have no response to it because their army is very modern, and my army, although not modern and very good in melee, is going to have a harder time against them because their entire army is very, very modern troops, and my army is pretty much literally swords and that's it. So I'm very also try to assassinate their general, which does happen, but I'm also going to eventually try to coerce their troops, which it does cost money, so you see me right now saving up money, which is very interesting. I'm also going to distract their army and use every sort of the playbook to essentially weaken their army as fast as possible, while building up my strength. And that said, we're eventually going to march on Isol, which is going to be interesting because Isol is held by the rebels, which I sponsored once again with the former province, and I think this is the only province that Odawara has left, and basically Odawara now is pretty much destroyed. So I essentially basically destroyed an entire faction without even going to war with it. And not to mention the fact that they still have positive relations with me, but I'm supporting their rebellions, and I'm essentially taking their lands, while at the same time they still love me. So this is why I love this campaign so much. I essentially get to play as double face. On the other hand, I do have entire Edo army, which I'm gonna try my best to distract or kill. My entire army right here is not the best, like I said. It's very good for assaulting cities in my opinion, but it's terrible when fighting armies like in the field, which is very, very problematic because my army is not even close to fighting traditional European armies or Western armies in the field. But on the other hand, my armies are able to take this capital or this settlement because I have one big thing on my hand, which is the artillery and the melee troops, which are very good for sieges. On the other hand, the enemy city is quite, or should I say the castle is quite small, is quite literally a dirt ramp, and because what happened to the rebels took it, their settlement hasn't been fixed, and because my artillery is just wreaking havoc, that is just gonna make a lot of interesting things. Not to mention the fact that I have a thing called the naval bombardment, which I'm actually gonna use. Now, naval bombardment for me is quite mixed. I do get some good hits, and sometimes I get no hits, or should I say very little hits. And it's very dependent on luck, which is quite interesting. For example, in this case, you can just see me blasting the heck out of them, and killing a lot of them very quickly, which is very, very interesting. On the other hand, you have examples like this in which pretty much nothing happens, in the sense that you see a lot of rounds go up, but not a lot of deaths. Which is pretty much what happens with naval bombardment in Shogun 2. Not a lot of things happen, but a lot of noise is made. But thankfully, I do have naval bombardment, and the enemy does not, so that's a plus side for me. In the event, eventually the enemy decides to sally out, which I decide to repay them with firing my guns. One volley, and my guys withdraw, and I catch them with my katana kachi, and what ends up happening is their enemy army that sally out are gonna get killed. Honestly, it's still a better choice than getting shot by my artillery. On the other hand, the other side, which I have two forces, one on the left, one on the right, they're also going to be sallying out, and my guys are put in the spear wall right before they charged in, and I practically destroyed them. On the other hand, I also killed their general, which is quite interesting. And the remaining forces on the outside, because the settlement is way too small to hold that many troops. Well, with that done, my troops start cliffing the walls, and what ends up happening is I put them in the walls, and the first thing they do is to clear out the remaining infantry that are on the wall so my main army can move in. And that's going to be very important because the rest of my army is able to move in, and what's going to happen is now we're just going to have a proper melee battle in which their troops are not ready because all of the enemy troops that they have are levy troops, while all my troops are samurai, or should I say kachi troops. So that's gonna happen, and my guys are able to take them out real quick. Eventually, I do form myself troops in spear wall, which allows me to kill them even faster, albeit the enemy still has a few guns that are shooting left and right. But needless to say, the enemy army is pretty much destroyed, and we are just trying to kill the rest of them as quickly as possible, because once they're at the keep, they can't be routed, they just have to be killed off, unless you capture point, which they are violently defending. But needless to say, I eventually send my cavalry to inside of the castle to kill the rest of them, which is quite interesting. And needless to say, the castle falls quite shortly after that. We win a decisive victory, which at this point I'm more adept with sieges than field battles with, well, this army, because traditional armies, in my opinion, are more better for sieges if you give the right units. And eventually I do raise a new army, which is the Snake Raiders. Now, these guys are essentially guns samurai, and they're very good. And while we're at that, the Sato declare war on us for absolutely no reason, except for the fact that they're imperial. And because they declare war on us, I have to look on the map where they are, and they're actually in the north, which is quite interesting because they only have two provinces, the island itself. And yeah, my response is to ally with the Shogun faction, which is the Matsudaira, and we ally with them. And while at this point, I prepared the massive army, my massive army, to finish the, let's just say, the Edo rebels, should I say. We eventually do corner them, and I eventually do mass up a massive army to corner them. And even though I do have the numerical numbers, I decide not to attack just yet, even though I even have gun units on my side, samurai gun units in my opinion, and we just continue boxing them up until I decide to order my Shinsengumi to essentially coerce them, but not yet. We're still gonna mass a massive army, and we're just gonna wait until this massive army, yes, this massive army is gonna come with them. So I have 3 armies in the field, of which 2 are full strength, and I'm just essentially gonna auto-resolve, although I'm gonna save first because the thing says I have a chance of losing, so yeah. But we end up winning a decisive victory, so decisive that I don't think we lose a lot. And what's gonna happen now is that we have essentially fully taken Musashi, or should I say, the capital. And now we are gonna be moving down, well, should I say, going west. We do have a rebellion, which is kind of funny considering the fact that I sponsor rebellions, and it's kind of awkward when you have the person sponsoring rebellions get a rebellion, which is interesting. With that said, this is all it for this video. Of course, in the next video we go west and we take out more provinces, and in the process of doing so, I do kind of shoot myself in the foot with rebellions. But that said, that's all it for this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join the Discord, and I'll see you in the next one.